Contract, it's a legal agreement of wills by which the fulfillment of a certain thing is demanded. Um, it's a private act between two or more parties intended to create obligations and generate rights. Who can make a contract? First, for contracts to be valid, the parties must be legally qualified to contract. Thus, the parties must be over 18 years old, um, under 18 years old who are legally emancipated, or people between 16 or 18 years old with a parental authorization. The disabled or minors who are not emancipated may not sign a contract. What legal characteristics does a contract have? The contracts are mainly characterized by the following aspects. The contract is concluded with the mere consent of the parties, and it's governed by the principle of autonomy of the will. Effects. Effects. It generates obligations and rights for the intervening parties. From of the contract, it can be oral or written. Content. The contract will contain rules or private conduct agreements that the parties to the contract will have to comply with. And contractual responsibility. The creditor, active subject, may demand the satisfaction of debts or the compulsory fulfillment of the obligations to the debtor, taxable person, based on what is agreed in the said contract, or the corresponding compensation for damages. In addition, for the existence of a contract, certain requirements must be met that we will see below. And there are essential elements of the contract. Um, for the contract to exist, it must have certain requirements or essential elements. Uh, First, it's the consent of the contracting parties. Second is true object that is the subject of the contract. And three is the cause of the obligation that is established. Capacity. It's the ability to contract constitutes the first of the essential elements of any contract. Only those who the law deemed complete competent to do so can hire. Consent. Consent refers to the willingness of the parties to want to enter into the contract. It is the contest of the offer and of the acceptable on the thing and the cause that have to constitute the contract. Object. The object of the contract must be possible, lawful, and determined without the need for a new agreement between the parties. In this section, the services or conditions that must be followed by either party or both as signed are combined. Cause. While the object responds to what is due, the cause is the fact that explains why it is due. That is, it justifies the creation of an obligation by the will of the parties. The cause should not be confused with the reasons that are the contracting parties had to enter into the contract, for the cause is always the same, while the reasons are variable. The cause must be existing, true, and lawful. And here I have a classification of contracts. There are several classification of contracts based on different aspects. but here I have some of the most important types. It could first, it's depending on whether there are benefits of both parties or only for one of them. They can be one rose or free. Two, if it generates obligations for one of both parties, they can be unilateral or bilateral. Third, if they are regulated by the law or not, they will be typical or atypical. Four, the contracts will be main or accessory or guarantee, depending on whether or not they depend on other contracts. And fifth, depending on whether the fulfillment of the contract is carried out in a single determined moment or in a period. They will be instantaneous or of the successive track. Thank you.